reflection of ultrasound increases with decrease in pH, indicating that liposomes are not reflecting ultrasound in physiological pH 7.4, but in the mildly acidic environment like 7, 6 or pH 5, they will start reflecting ultrasound. And when we evaluated these images for the grayscale values, mean grayscale value and maximum grayscale value, as you can see with decrease in pH, there was an increase in value, indicating the generation of carbon dioxide bubbles. Then we want, then the hypothesis is that the bubbles try to escape the bilayer and disturb the bilayer. So we wanted to see how these bubbles disturb the bilayer. So for that purpose, we took the AFM pictures before and after incubation with the acidic buffer. We took the images before treatment. As you can see, before treatment the liposomes are round, nice, spherical, like a boiled egg. But after treatment, it looks like a scrambled egg. The bilayer structures gets completely destroyed, indicating that the escaping carbon dioxide bubble does have impact on the bilayer structure, releasing the content. And after that, we wanted to make sure whether it releases the content or not. So for that purpose, we encapsulated a self-pinching dye, carboxyfluorescein, 100 millimolar, and we checked the release as a function of pH. We incubated these liposomes in different pH buffers, and we took two different gas precursors, ammonium bicarbonate and sodium bicarbonate. As you can see, as the pH decreases, the release increases. After 3 hours of incubation with pH 5 buffer, with ammonium bicarbonate liposomes, we got around 80% release. And with sodium bicarbonate, with pH 5 buffer, we got around 45% release. And when we observe the release profiles of these liposomes, the release profiles look very interesting. As you can see here, for initial 10-15 minutes, there was no release in this period. And we hypothesized that this is the time during which the hydronium ions are diffusing into the bilayer and creating a lot of bubbles. And only after the sufficient pressure gets created, like after 15-20 minutes, it starts leaking the dye from the liposomes. And to summarize the studies I have done until now, we have successfully prepared pH tunable ecogenic liposomes with size around 110 nanometer, and the liposomes found to be ecogenic only upon incubation in acidic buffers. We got around 75% release with pH 5 buffers with ammonium bicarbonate liposomes, and with sodium bicarbonate liposomes we got around 44% release. Then as the hypothesis is that the carbon dioxide bubbles are getting generated, we can always apply ultrasound to these liposomes to enhance the cavitation by these bubbles and enhance the release from these liposomes. So in future, we'll be applying ultrasound to these liposomes and we'll check the release as a function of pH, time, temperature and gas precursor. We'll use sodium bicarbonate as well as ammonium bicarbonate as a gas precursor, and we'll play around the concentration of this bicarbonate to get the maximum release from these liposomes. We'll also change the ultrasound parameters like frequency, power and interval, and we'll see the effect of these parameters on the ultrasound enhanced release. And the important parameter will be time of application. As I told you, for the initial 10-15 minutes, there is no release from these liposomes and there is a slow production of carbon dioxide inside. So we expect that if we apply ultrasound during this period, there will be no enhancement in the release. And only after 20 to 25 minutes, there will be sufficient number of bubbles present inside, and so that the liposome will be more ultrasound sensitive. Then after that, after optimizing the release, we'll encapsulate doxorubicin inside these liposomes. And because we have ammonium bicarbonate inside, we cannot entrap acidic buffer inside. We cannot use pH gradient method. So we'll be employing ammonium gradient method, that is remote loading method. This method is reported to have high total entrapment, but it has disadvantages of low encapsulation efficiency and slow process. It's a slow process. So we'll be optimizing this method to get the maximum encapsulation of doxorubicin. As a fallback method, will be having passive entrapment, which is reported to have more than 90% encapsulation efficiency, but it also having drawback that it has low entrapment value. Then after encapsulating doxorubicin, we'll check the cell viability and uptake studies with these liposomes. So for that purpose, we'll be using PANC1, MCF7 and HeLa, which are known to overexpress folate receptors. And we'll be doing the uptake studies and cell viability studies as a function of folate targeting and ultrasound exposure. We'll check the effect of concentration and incubation time on the uptake and cell viability, and also the ultrasound exposure with effect of ultrasound exposure on cell uptake and cell viability. Then ultrasound is always questioned for its safety, especially to those healthy cells surrounding the tumor tissue to which we are applying ultrasound. So we'll be testing the safety of the ultrasound which we are applying in one experiment where we'll be seeding cells in the upper chamber of the transvaal insert, and we'll also seed the cells in the lower chamber. The upper chamber cells will represent the cancer tumor cells, which get direct exposure to liposomes and ultrasound. On the other hand, the lower chamber cells will represent the healthy tissue surrounding the tumor, which might get indirect exposure of ultrasound as well as liposomes. And after doing that experiment, we'll check the cell viability of the upper chamber cells as well as lower chamber cells by doing live and dead staining. And we'll be doing it as a function of folate targeting, doxorubicin liposomes, and with ultrasound exposure. Then moving on to the final specific aim, that is preparation and characterization of echogenic polymerosomes for simultaneous targeted drug delivery and ultrasound imaging. The first three specific aims were dealing with the echogenic liposomes. But this deals with the echogenic polymerosomes. As the name itself indicates, these are bodies made up of polymers, but these polymers are amphiphilic polymers. And the structure is very similar to the liposomes, like the bilayered structure. And because these are amphiphilic polymers, when we put into the water, they arrange themselves so that they form a vesicle structure like liposomes, encapsulating a hydrophilic drug inside. And there are a lot of advantages of polymerosomes over liposomes. And because of that, the polymerosomes are getting popular in the drug delivery scenario. The primary advantage with the use of polymerosomes compared to liposomes is their stability and robustness. Because these polymerosomes are made up of polymers, they arrange themselves so compactly in the bilayer, and thus the bilayer become more stable and more robust. Also the tunability with the size, shape and membrane thickness. As we can synthesize these polymers with different molecular weight, with different type of functional groups, we can actually play with the size, shape and membrane thickness. We can increase the size thickness by increasing the molecular weight of these polymers. Then, because we can play with the size, shape and thickness, we can always increase their ability to carry the drug, both hydrophobic and hydrophilic drug. Also, surface functionality can be done, like we can put the different functional groups and ligands on the surface of these polymers, and we can do the targeting for these polymerosomes. And in most of the polymers used in the polymerosomes, the hydrophilic part is taken as the polyethylene glycol, and because of which it inherently takes the stealthy nature, which is required for the in vivo applications. And in current drug delivery scenario, there are many reports of stimuli-sensitive polymerosomes. Stimuli such as pH, heat, magnetic field, glucose, glutathione. But there are very few reports with the targeted polymerosomes. And there are no reports of ultrasound-sensitive liposomes or echogenic polymerosomes which can be used for the drug delivery and ultrasound imaging. So the concept of the study is to prepare echogenic polymerosome which will have a disulfide bond between the two parts, hydrophobic and hydrophilic part, So when these polymerosomes enter into the cytosol, where there is a high concentration of thiol, they will release the content with simultaneous ultrasound application, and we'll also have the ultrasound imaging when these polymerosomes will circulate in the extracellular environment. So with this, we started synthesizing the polymers. We took the PEG as a hydrophilic part and PLA as a hydrophobic part, PLA as in polylactic acid. We kept the PEG molecular weight constant 2000, but varied the PLA molecular weight. So we had five different polymers with disulfide bond 8. We have not yet characterized these polymers, but we'll be characterizing this using gel permeation chromatography to check the polydispersity of these polymers. And we'll also do GPC before and after treatment with the reducing agent to check whether these polymers are getting cleaved by the reducing agent or not. Then just to check whether these polymers are forming structures or not. So I use the same Frisdam method for all five polymers. And after preparing these polymerosomes, we looked into them under the TM microscope, a transmission electron microscope. And as you can see, with all different five polymers, we got different structures. With 900 sample, the structures were more like micelles, small spheres, compact spheres, with sizes around 50 to 60 nanometer. With 1700, the samples were mostly long worms, bicell structures. In 1900, although we noticed some vesicles getting formed, but most of the sample was long bicelles and worm-like structures. The only two samples where majority of polymers were forming vesicles were 5800 and 3620 sample. And as you can see, it formed vesicles with sizes around 100 to 120 nanometer. Then we further characterized these two samples for their sizes using TEM, Dunning-Klyde scattering, and atomic force microscopic images. And in EMF images, you can see the polymerosomes were round and spherical with sizes around 100 to 120 nanometer. Then after that, we'll be checking the ecogenicity of these polymerosomes. But as we know, it is established that for ecogenic polymerosomes, ecogenic liposomes, the required concentration of mannitol is 0.32 molar. And recently, we have found out that it needs at least 100 millimolar of mannitol to get the optimum ecogenicity for liposomes. As you can see, as the concentration of mannitol increases, the ecogenicity increases, but after that it becomes constant. But because we are using polymerosomes here, the material is different, so we are expecting that it will require a different concentration than 0.32 or 0.1. So we'll be checking the ecogenicity of these polymerosomes as a function of mannitol concentration. We'll be doing ultrasound imaging and scattering experiments for these polymerosomes as a function of frequency, pressure, and time. Then we'll check the redox sensitivity of these polymerosomes. So we'll take the AFM and TMM pictures before and after treatment with glutathione, and we'll check the change in size, shape, and morphology. Then to check the release, we'll encapsulate a self-pinching dye like carboxyfluorescein, and we'll expose these polymerosomes to glutathione from 10 micromolar to 10 millimolar concentration, and we'll incubate for different time intervals, and we'll check the release. Then we'll check the release with the ultrasound trigger. So we'll expose these polymerosomes to ultrasound, and we'll check the release as a function of frequency, power, and interval. Then after checking release with individual triggers, we'll combine the two triggers together, and we'll have 3 different setups, and we'll check the release with each different setup. And after that, we'll move to cellular studies, where we'll be employing 3D cell culture. As we know, the regular monolayer cell culture has certain disadvantages, like it lacks heterogeneity and also lacks the resistance to penetration, which is there in vivo tumors. But in case of spheroids, that is 3D cell culture, they mimic the architecture of cancer spheroids. Like they have healthy proliferating cells on the outer side and resting cells in the middle region, and they have necrotic center. They also have alter protein expression pattern, just like in vivo tumors, and also the poor drug penetration, which is there in vivo. So the 3D cell culture represent better and advanced in vitro model to evaluate the new drugs and new drug delivery vehicles. So we'll be doing the studies of our polymorphisms with the cancer cell spheroids. And to test this, we'll be encapsulating a drug combination, doxorubicin and gemcitabine. Gemcitabine, as we know, is a classic drug to treat the pancreatic cancer. And there are many clinical reports which have shown that these two drugs give better results when they are combined together as compared to the individual treatment. But there are no reports in the literature where these two drugs are combined in a single drug delivery vehicle, like liposomal polymorphism. So we'll be encapsulating these two drugs inside these polymorphisms using the same pH gradient method in the specific ratio. And we will be testing the effect of this drug combination on pancreatic cancer cell lines, PANC1 and MIA-PACA2. And we'll be doing it as a folate targeting, because the PANC1 overexpresses folate receptor, whereas the MIA-PACA2 does not overexpress. So we'll be doing studies with the monolayer as well as multicellular cancer spheroids. So with monolayer, we'll be doing cytotoxicity assay, we'll be doing uptake studies, and we'll be doing it as a function of folate targeting, ultrasound application, and combination of both. With multicellular cancer spheroid, we will be checking % decrease or delay in the diameter of spheroid. When we incubate our polymorphisms with the spheroid, there will be delay or decrease in the growth of the diameter of the spheroid. So for that purpose, we'll be having a calibration curve where we'll have time in days on the x-axis and diameter of spheroid on the y-axis, and we'll be checking the diameter of polymorphisms over the period of time. And after treatment, we'll check whether treatment has reduced the growth or whether it has decreased the diameter of the spheroid. Then one more advantage of 3D cell culture is that it gives the additional barrier to penetration. So we'll be checking the penetration of these polymorphisms, and we'll be checking it as a function of folate targeting, ultrasound application, and combination of two. And to check the uptake, we'll be taking the confocal images, and we'll see how deep these polymorphisms can penetrate into the spheroids. With this, I would like to thank the funding agencies, NIH, NSF, my advisor Dr. Sanku Milik, my committee members Dr. Singh, Dr. Vetter, Dr. Gilly, Dr. Manas Haldar, who synthesized the polymerizable lipid linker, and Dr. Kaushik Sarkar, our collaborators, and my former and present lab mates, and also the students who contributed to this research directly, indirectly. And I thank you for your patient listening, and I'll be happy to answer any questions, and I'll be more happy to receive comments and suggestions.